Well, it's personal between me and you, and I'm going to do you some serious harm, you big stiff idiot.
The untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, happy Sunday to everybody out there. It's Sunday as I'm shooting this video. By the time it comes out, it'll be a new week. So, hope you guys have a good week ahead of you. I'm just getting out the gym, feeling good, feeling strong, looking good, smelling good. Gotta keep things in order. But listen, man, I wanted to actually make a follow-up video to Vergil Ortiz in his fight this past weekend, because all the talk about Vergil Ortiz now is like, okay, he's beaten these good veterans, he's beaten former world title challengers, he's shown now he can deal with a southpaw, young fighter, hungry fighter, undefeated fighter like Michael McKinson. But now the question is Vergil Ortiz ready for the top guys in the division? And how would he do against like Crawford, Spence, Jaron Ennis, things like that? So this video right here, this may be a bit of a long drawn out video, but this is going to be my take on right now at this moment in time on August the 7th, 2022, how I think Vergil Ortiz matches up with those three guys, Crawford, Spence, and Ennis. Now, the likelihood that any one of these three fights happen is very, very slim, to be honest, just with the way boxing is set up these days. But it is what we're talking about, and you never know. The crazier things have happened. Maybe one of these fights do happen down the road. Now, before I get into breaking down Vergil versus those guys, let me preface everything I'm going to say by saying that I thought Vergil Ortiz was ready to fight at the World Championship level a year ago when he fought, just after he fought Hooker. I thought at that point in time he was already ready. So all he did now with McKinson is just get more valuable experience and become more ready to fight at that elite world class, creme de la creme, top shelf level. But let's talk about it. So let's start with the all Dallas matchup, and excuse that clause that's open back there. I know my room is a bit crazy right now. I've been in and out of the house all day today, but let's start with the all Dallas matchup, okay? Errol Spence Jr. versus Vergil Ortiz. I think if this fight were to ever happen, first and foremost, it would be huge for Dallas boxing. It would shut the city down. It would be Grand Prairie versus DeSoto. I've been to both places quite frequently when I'm in Texas, so I know about Grand Prairie. I know about DeSoto. With that being said, it would be a great event first and foremost, but the fight itself I think would be very, very good and tactical, because when you talk about what makes Errol Spence a dangerous fighter and one of the best welterweights in the world today, Errol Spence Jr., what makes him so good is that volume jab. That consistent southpaw volume jab. He's able to throw that jab a lot. It's very fundamentally sound because he keeps his hands in a great position. Errol Spence Jr. is one of the best in boxing at just simply keeping his hands in position. His hand positioning is world class. And it's something that's so minor like that people don't really pay attention to, but that's what he does really well, is his hand positioning. So it sets up that great volume jab, and then once he gets that going, he closes that gap on you, and he uses that physical strength, and he kind of like plants his feet, and he lands those punches to the body, and he chops you down, and he systematically, round by round, picks up that pressure and breaks you down, right? The fight with Vergil Ortiz and him will be interesting, because a matchup with him and Vergil Ortiz will be interesting because Vergil Ortiz, one of the things that makes Vergil such a good fighter, a great, fantastic young fighter, and a threat to anybody in the welterweight division today, is that power jab. That power jab, much like Earl, he's got great hand positioning. He's very good at keeping his hands up. And on top of that, when you look at Vergil Ortiz, the one area where I think he's got a lot of guys in boxing beat, and even in this division, is his balance. I mean, it's rare that you see Vergil Ortiz fall off balance, and because he doesn't fall off balance, he's able to get off 2, 3, 4, 5 punch combinations at a time. And because of his balance, because of those fundamentals, he doesn't got to be the most athletic fighter in the world to get off 4 or 5 punches. He can get 4 or 5 punches off just with his fundamentals. So because of these things, because of the styles and the strengths and weaknesses of both fighters, I really would give Vergil, if Vergil and Errol Spence were to fight right now, let's just say the whole thing with Crawford fell through. If Vergil and Earl were to fight right now, I would give Vergil a great chance to beat Earl. I actually would pick him to beat Earl, because one thing you gotta understand, to beat Errol Spence, you have to neutralize the volume jab, which is easier said than done. Nobody's done it yet for the course of a fight, but nobody he's fought, in my opinion, apart from maybe Kell Brook, but Kell Brook was coming off of that Golovkin fight, so I don't think he was his best self going into the Spence fight. Nobody, I think, has a combination of fundamentals and balance that Vergil had. And I really do think Vergil could neutralize the output of that jab and beat Errol Spence, outwork him, and win a decision. But that's what I think. I genuinely think Vergil Ortiz could beat Errol Spence right now. If they were to fight August 7, 2022, he would beat Errol Spence right now at this moment in time, which is kind of crazy because people are going to say, well, BT, how can you say that? You just hate Errol Spence, and it's not the case. I think Errol is, you gotta look past the names and the hype and just look at fighters for what they are. Like, Errol Spence is great at what he does, but he's a guy that has a really well-schooled jab. He's very physically strong, but once you take away that jab of his, there's not many more dimensions to that, and it actually winds up taking away what he's also best at, which is the body punching. So I think Vergil, if he fought Errol Spence next, right now, he would beat him in a very close fight. I think so. So that'd be a good fight, but I don't think it'll ever happen, but I wish it would. So then you have Terence Bud Crawford. Now, a year ago when Vergil beat Maurice Hooker and Terence was ringside, and he was talking about how he would stop Vergil. I actually thought that if they were to fight like at that moment in time, I thought Terence would ice Vergil Ortiz. I'm talking like he would literally Fernando Vargas' ass. It would have been a case where a young fighter takes a fight a little bit too early and loses in devastating fashion and maybe gets his career ruined in the process. That's what I genuinely thought. But then after further review and then seeing how he dealt with McKinson and seeing Vergil thinking there, seeing the adjustments he made, seeing him think, that fight's a lot closer now than it was a year ago. And when you factor in like Crawford's lack of ring activity, when you factor in the fact that Terence Bud Crawford hasn't really, he stays in the gym, but he hasn't been like in the ring a lot. He's getting up there in age. The legs are still good and they're strong, but they're not quite what they were a couple years ago. Vergil's maturing. He's getting bigger. He's getting more experience. I think that fight's a lot closer now. I would probably still right now pick Crawford only because Vergil does get hit a little bit too much for my liking, and Crawford is very good at punching on the move. And we saw in the McKinson fight when McKinson threw awkward punches from awkward angles, and when he was able to slip, he could counter him. So things like that, I feel like would be the ultimate undoing of Vergil in that fight. But if they were to fight a fight or two from now, then I think Vergil will probably beat Terence Crawford because he's physically strong, got that piston-like jab, and if he gets you hurt, he gets you out of there, and that's how it goes. And the body shots, I haven't really seen too many guys go to the body on Terence Crawford. So but right now, I would lean towards Crawford, but that fight is way closer than it was a year ago. I'll tell you that much right now. And then as far as Jaron Ennis is concerned, this is a tough one because Jaron Ennis is a guy that, much like Vergil, he's been knocking out everything in sight. Neither one of these guys has seen the championship rounds in their career, so we don't really know how these guys are performing in the championship rounds because nobody's taken them to the 10th round or later in a tough competitive fight. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, people are gonna ooh and ah over the skills of Ennis, which they should because I had a chance to watch him spar, and when you see it in person, it's even better than it is on TV. To be honest with you, but Jaron Ennis is as great as he is, as talented as he is, and I think he is the most skilled welterweight on the planet. He's got every skill under the sun. He's got more tools than anybody in this weight class. But let's not act like he hasn't had defensive lapses at times. Sometimes he's so good, he's so skilled in there that he can switch off and he can, at times, have defensive lapses and get clipped with some shit. So there's that. Vergil Ortiz is primarily a high guard fighter. We've seen Jaron Ennis absolutely destroy and just kill fighters who fight in the high guard a lot. I don't think any of those guys he fought in the high guard though they'll have the balance or the consistent power jab of Vergil Ortiz. So in that fight right there, that one could go either way. That would come down to whoever's the more well conditioned fighter and whoever's the more physically stronger guy. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to call a spade a spade. Michael McKinson, even though I kept telling everybody, he can't punch, but he's deceptively strong physically, and that's going to make things difficult. You saw in the early rounds when Michael McKinson crowded Vergil, how he was able to kind of like, at times, frustrate him and push him around a little bit. You know, I think Boots can do some of that. I think Boots, with his combination of speed, size, and punching power, and versatility, with the way he can set you up, the way he can land punches around the guard, land flush uppercuts, double uppercuts, come around. Like, he just has a very versatile attack. He probably has the most versatile attack of any of the other two, any of these three guys that Vergil, at the top Vergil could fight, like, Spence or Crawford. But because of that, that's why I think he would be Vergil's hardest fight, because of the different attacks he has. See, Crawford is very good at sharpshooting, punching on the move. But Crawford, he has a good jab, but I don't think it's to the point where you could say there's a big gap in class between him and Vergil's jab. Errol Spence has a great volume jab and is a very good body puncher. But again, the attacks aren't quite as versatile. As to with Jaron Ennis, you might get a punch up the middle, that's an uppercut. You might get a straight left hand. You might get a straight right hand. He might move laterally and throw an uppercut going backwards. You just don't know what the hell's gonna happen with Jaron Ennis. And because of that, and because of Vergil Ortiz's defense not being quite up to where I think it should be for a fight like that, I would actually favor Ennis in that fight. So if he fights Spence, I think he'll outwork Spence. If he fights Crawford, that's damn near, at this point, I actually think that I will slightly favor Crawford, but I would say it's like a 55-45 fight. If Vergil gets any more experience, if he gets like another fight, and then let's say the Crawford fight gets made, then I think at that point it'll be a pick-em fight, because he'll now have had more experience under his belt. But right now, I would slightly favor Crawford in a more competitive fight than it was a year ago, than I thought it would be a year ago. And as for Ennis, I think Ennis would probably, of the three, that would be the one guy that I could definitively pick against Vergil Ortiz. Not for any other reason other than the fact that I just think the way he's able to set people up, the traps he sets, the way he's able to come punch through the guard. Because sometimes you watch his fights, guys shell up and he's punching through the guard, and then he's able to set you up punching around the guard, and just the ability to switch and punch equally hard from both stances. See, like, Crawford can punch hard out of both stances, but I think he punches a little bit harder as an orthodox fighter than he does as a southpaw, So that's the difference, in my opinion, in that fight, but in those fights. But yeah, I think Vergil Ortiz, listen, on any given night, I think people need to give his just due. The fact that the guy doesn't talk a lot, and the fact that the guy doesn't really have like a big brass personality, sometimes he gets overlooked. But Vergil Ortiz, let me tell you, on any given night, with where he's at now, because now he's fought in all types of different styles, different types of fighters, and he's going to probably fight one or two more before he gets a world title shot. He's reached that point in his career where I seriously think he's capable enough to beat anybody in the division, whether it be Ennis, whether it be Crawford, whether it be Spence. Now, I'm not picking him against Ennis. I probably wouldn't pick him against Crawford. I pick him against Spence, just because I just think style-wise, his style matches up the best with Spence. But when you fight these guys at that world-class championship level, they're all good. They're all like top shelf. But it's just like the little things. It's the little things that make the biggest of difference. Look at last night. Like, Michael McKinson was a capable fighter. He had the physical strength to frustrate Vergil at times. He had the boxing know-how to slip punches and counter and things like that. But then he didn't really have the punching power. He didn't have the not just the punching power. He didn't have the hand speed to trouble Vergil. You know what I'm saying? And that's another thing about Vergil, right? And I'm gonna end the video after I say this. Vergil Ortiz, hand speed. When he plants those feet and he puts them together, I think he got faster hands than Errol Spence. I don't think he's faster than Crawford or Ennis, but he's faster than Errol Spence for sure. And that's why that's another reason I think he beat Errol Spence. And if Crawford, let's say like Crawford, right? Crawford's not really known for having the greatest chin in the world. He's been hurt before. A lot of people got dropped against Kavaluskas. And sometimes, as much as he is good at boxing, he's a fighter. He's an angry guy, spiteful guy. So that would mean that Crawford might sit there and actually fight Vergil Ortiz, and that could actually be to his ultimate detriment if they were to ever fight Crawford and Vergil Ortiz, because once you sit there and you fight with him and you plant your feet and you let him plant his feet, then you're talking about a guy who's putting 3, 4, 5 punches together, all on balance, all fluid, all precise, and if he hurts you, he's gonna jump on you and get you out of there. So I'm just saying, man, y'all, a lot of people are saying that Vergil Ortiz doesn't belong at the world-class top level with the guys like Ennis and Crawford and Spence, and I just think, for lack of a better term, I'm making this video to say that that's fucking bullshit. All right, Vergil Ortiz is the goods. He's one of the top fighters out there, and if you don't know now, he'll find out later. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say, man. Just give Vergil his due and talk about how I think he matches up with those guys and give my little observations. And I would like to hear your guys' observations. What do you guys make of Vergil Ortiz against, Jaron Ennis, Terence Crawford, Errol Spence? All 3 of these fights probably won't happen anytime soon. That's what I would think, but it's fun to talk about, so I figured I make a long-winded video about it. So you guys let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure you guys take the time to subscribe, and like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Daniel. So until next time, take care.
Thank you for watching True School Sports.
No, follow this kid.
Oh.
He's a true, he's a young, true, passionate person who follows boxing. He wakes up thinking about boxing and he goes to sleep thinking about boxing.
This is true.
Good kid, good man, and looking forward to seeing him everywhere in the boxing world.
Hey man, if you ain't subscribed to True School Sports, you fucking up, man. Make sure you subscribe, bro.
Fucking up big time.
Make sure, man.